The Sterling Tower stood silent at midnight. Inside the executive boardroom, the only sound was the steady drip of a leaking pipe beneath a heavy mahogany table. Arthur Pendelton, a 35-year-old night shift maintenance worker, adjusted his wrench. The glow of his flashlight illuminated the complex plumbing hidden beneath the Italian marble floor. His military background made him methodical. He reached for his utility belt, accidentally pressing the active record button on his modified digital communication device. The heavy oak doors clicked open. The electronic lock flashed green, signaling an unscheduled entry to the restricted floor at this late hour. Arthur immediately turned off his flashlight and remained perfectly still. The heavy footsteps of two men echoed across the vast, empty room. Richard Sterling, 60 years old and impeccably dressed, walked toward the panoramic window. He stared out over the city lights, hands clasped behind his back. Beside him stood a younger associate holding an encrypted tablet. They spoke in hushed tones about restructuring the family legacy and overriding the current administration. Hidden in the deep shadows, Arthur barely breathed. His device captured every syllable as Richard outlined the plan to orchestrate an artificial data collapse. The associate expressed concern about the new security protocols. Richard dismissed it with a cold smile, assuring him the safeguards were already compromised from within. Underneath the table, Arthur's calloused hand gripped the wrench tighter. The recording timer on his screen ticked silently, capturing a secret that could dismantle an empire. Above him, a single bead of water swelled on the cracked copper pipe. Arthur stared at it, calculating the exact moment gravity would betray his position. Richard's expensive leather shoes paced closer, stopping inches from the table's edge. The executive leaned against the mahogany wood, the fabric of his suit brushing the darkness. Richard spoke of Victoria with a chilling calmness. He called her too naive for the legacy, confirming the exact activation date to dismantle her infrastructure. The water drop finally fell. With lightning reflexes, Arthur extended his gloved hand, catching the cold liquid against his palm to prevent a resounding echo. Unaware of the ghost beneath them, the associate nodded and deactivated his tablet. The two men turned, their heavy footsteps receding toward the exit. The thick oak doors swung shut with a heavy thud. The electronic lock chirped, its light shifting from green to a stark, unforgiving red. Arthur finally exhaled, a silent breath of relief in the cold air. Slowly, he slid out from the confining shadows of the heavy wooden table. He halted the recording. The small screen displayed a completed audio file, 12 minutes of digital evidence holding the fate of thousands of employees. Acting with strict military discipline, Arthur immediately extracted a hidden flash drive from his boot, duplicating the encrypted file to ensure the truth survived. He gathered his tools with calculated efficiency. The invisible maintenance worker, once a phantom in these corridors, was now the sole guardian of the Empire's deepest secret. Arthur moved down the long, silent corridor of the Sterling Tower. The overhead lights flickered subtly, casting his tall silhouette against the polished concrete walls. He entered the dim staff lounge on the third floor. On a worn leather sofa, his 7-year-old daughter, Lily, lay fast asleep, wrapped in his heavy winter jacket. Lily's small hands held a worn drawing notebook tightly against her chest. Her innocent face showed no awareness of the corporate storm gathering outside those walls. Arthur knelt beside the sofa, gently brushing a stray blonde curl from her forehead. His protective gaze hardened, fully aware that his choices would now dictate her safety. He looked down at the encrypted device in his hand, weighing the options. The whistleblower protocol promised anonymity, but in a multi-billion-dollar empire, anonymity was a fragile shield. The next morning, bright sunlight cut through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse office. Victoria Sterling sat at her desk, surrounded by mounting financial projections. She stood up and walked to the glass, her elegant posture masking deep exhaustion. The continuous drop in stock prices indicated an internal breach she had yet to locate. Meanwhile, in a high-end European cafe, Richard Sterling sat across from a private operative. The morning papers on the table headlined the company's recent market vulnerability. Richard gestured coldly, instructing the operative to accelerate the final file deployment. He expressed complete certainty that the current administration would collapse by the weekend. Outside a local elementary school, Arthur watched Lily walk toward the entrance. His eyes narrowed as he noticed a gray sedan with tinted windows idling across the street. Arthur stood motionless on the pavement, his sharp eyes tracking the gray sedan as it lingered near the school perimeter. He mentally logged the license plate digits before the vehicle accelerated smoothly, dissolving into the light morning mist. Knowing time was short, Arthur entered a quiet public terminal downtown, choosing a location away from corporate surveillance networks. He connected his encrypted flash drive, bypassing standard tracking arrays to access the anonymous internal legal portal of Sterling Tech. The upload bar advanced steadily across the screen, transferring the 12-minute recording into the company's automated compliance archive. A green confirmation signal flashed on the terminal, assigning a permanent cryptographic case tracking number, WB0000743. On the 38th floor, a high-priority alert pinged on the secure terminal of Sarah Vance, the senior legal counsel. Sarah, an elegant 38-year-old Caucasian woman, adjusted her glasses as the automated system decrypted the incoming audio file. Within minutes of listening, her professional composure shattered, replaced by deep shock as she recognized Richard Sterling's voice. She immediately initiated a secure protocol, typing an urgent response to the anonymous whistleblower to arrange an immediate, off-site meeting. Arthur walked out of the public terminal onto a damp, stone-paved European street under a heavy gray sky. His mobile device vibrated sharply in his palm, the screen flashing with an unidentified, encrypted incoming number. He brought the device to his ear, his rugged face remaining entirely expressionless, completely hardened by years of military service. Sarah Vance's voice delivered a brief, tense message, emphasizing that the preliminary verification required an immediate, off-site consultation. Within 20 minutes, a polished black executive town car pulled up quietly next to the rain-slicked curb where he waited. A few neighbors watched curiously from distant apartment windows as Arthur approached the luxury vehicle, wearing his only formal dark suit. The heavy passenger door shut with a muffled thud, sealing him inside a pristine, quiet environment upholstered in dark leather. The vehicle glided effortlessly through the dense city traffic, moving Arthur away from his working-class neighborhood toward the high-rise financial district. The car descended a steep concrete ramp, entering the heavily guarded private underground parking facility beneath the Sterling Tower. Two tall corporate security guards in dark suits stood waiting by the private elevator bank, holding open the doors for Arthur's arrival. The private elevator ascended swiftly, opening into a high-security executive suite. The space was filled with mid-century furniture and filtered, cool afternoon light through floor-to-ceiling glass. Sarah Vance stood by the massive windows, her silhouette sharp against the cityscape. She turned as Arthur entered, her expression a mix of professional caution and deep-seated concern. They sat across from each other at a minimalist glass conference table. The silence was heavy, filled with the unspoken weight of the digital evidence sitting between them. Sarah activated a sleek monitor embedded in the table. The audio file from the boardroom began to play again, the conspirators' voices filling the sterile air of the room. She meticulously analyzed the vocal frequencies and timestamps. Every word confirmed a systematic plan to sabotage the corporation's server integrity during the upcoming quarterly fiscal review. Richard's plan involved an artificial system collapse designed to trigger an automated buyback protocol. This would effectively transfer controlling interest from Victoria to a hidden offshore shell company. Arthur leaned forward, sliding his mobile device across the glass surface. He displayed the high-resolution image of the gray sedan he had captured earlier outside the elementary school gates. Sarah's face paled as she cross-referenced the license plate on her terminal. The vehicle belonged to a private firm frequently employed by Richard for off-the-books internal operations. She informed Arthur that he had bypassed several layers of corporate monitoring. He was no longer just a witness, he was a variable that Richard would seek to neutralize immediately. Arthur remained silent, staring at the digital image. The backpack Lily carried was a stark reminder that the conflict had moved far beyond the boardroom's polished marble floors. Sarah Vance leaned back, her mind racing through the legal and physical liabilities. She concluded that the only viable mitigation strategy was to bring Arthur directly to Victoria Sterling. To prevent hostile interception, she bypassed standard corporate scheduling networks, organizing a clandestine meeting at Victoria's private suburban estate at midnight. Rain began to fall heavily as the black town car departed the financial district, navigating dark winding roads flanked by ancient pine trees. The vehicle approached a pair of massive wrought iron gates, which opened silently to reveal an imposing contemporary Gothic estate built of dark stone and glass. Victoria Sterling stood in her vast, dimly lit study, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and the soft amber glow of a grand fireplace. The heavy mahogany doors of the study opened, and Arthur stepped inside, his rugged appearance creating a stark contrast with the refined luxury of the estate. Victoria turned slowly, her stunning blonde hair catching the firelight. Her sharp, analytical eyes immediately assessed the man who held her company's fate. Sarah briefly introduced Arthur, explaining his background as a military engineer and the absolute authenticity of the decrypted boardroom audio file. Victoria walked toward Arthur, her elegant posture hiding the deep anxiety caused by her uncle's betrayal. She demanded to know his conditions for cooperation. Arthur maintained his calm, stoic composure, stating simply that his only priority was the complete neutralization of the threat against his daughter. Victoria studied Arthur's unmoving expression, recognizing the absolute conviction of a father protecting his asset. She gave a silent, decisive nod of agreement. She officially guaranteed that the corporation's private security division would establish an invisible, 24-hour defense perimeter around Lily's temporary location. With the alliance secured, Victoria walked over to a heavy oak desk, activating a highly encrypted personal workstation that connected directly to the corporate mainframe. Sarah Vance joined her, opening a secure legal ledger to outline a comprehensive countermeasure protocol that would hold up in a federal court. They designed a strategic honeypot network, a series of highly sensitive, fabricated corporate files disguised as proprietary cloud computing source codes. These specific files were embedded with advanced biometric tracking markers and unique cryptographic digital signatures that would deploy upon any unauthorized download. The system was configured so that the moment Richard's external team attempted a network infiltration, their exact physical location and server addresses would lock into the compliance log. Arthur watched the complex network architecture map out across the high-resolution monitors, his technical military experience allowing him to identify minor system vulnerabilities. He pointed a calloused finger at a secondary server routing path on the display, suggesting a modification to ensure Richard could not bypass the digital watermark array. Victoria adjusted her stance, looking at Arthur with newfound respect as his precise engineering adjustments finalized the digital trap that would seal her uncle's fate. Arthur returned to his scheduled shift, his dark blue maintenance uniform serving as the perfect camouflage. He methodically polished the mirrors of the executive washroom. Concealed beneath his thick collar was a microtransmitter, establishing an unbroken, encrypted audio link directly to Victoria's secure mainframe. The heavy door opened, and the electronic deadbolt engaged immediately. Richard stepped into the pristine space, his sharp suit contrasting with the sterile tiles. Richard approached the marble sink, turning on the gold faucet. He made direct, calculated eye contact with Arthur through the wide mirror reflection. The executive spoke softly about the unpredictable nature of large architectural structures, noting how easily unforeseen events could impact unattended dependents. Arthur's jaw tightened. He gripped the cotton cleaning cloth firmly, suppressing his protective instincts to maintain the illusion of absolute submission. Confident his subtle warning was received, Richard dried his hands and exited, unaware he had just permanently archived his own coercive intent. Miles away, Victoria stood in her study, listening to the live transmission. The recorded intimidation finalized the legal requirements for immediate corporate restructuring. Within the hour, Arthur navigated his weathered vehicle down a quiet interstate highway, distancing himself entirely from the city's jurisdiction. Lily slept securely in the passenger seat. The private security perimeter was ready, ensuring his ultimate asset remained completely shielded from the impending fallout. Arthur arrived at a secluded warehouse district near the city port, the heavy rain casting a glossy, dark sheen over the old cobblestones. Victoria's private vehicle was already positioned deep within the architectural shadows, its headlights turned off to avoid local surveillance arrays. They met inside an abandoned brick packaging facility, where the faint amber beams of a portable work lamp cut through the cold, rising mist. Victoria wore a dark trench coat, her elegant blonde hair pulled back tightly as she reviewed the latest network access logs on a secure tablet. She revealed that Richard had successfully turned 3 major board members against her administration, creating total internal isolation within her own legacy. Her voice held a rare, subtle tremor of vulnerability, exposing the immense psychological weight of managing an empire completely alone. Arthur stepped closer, his calm, imposing presence providing an immediate anchor of security in the desolate, cold space. He shared a tactical lesson from his previous military engineering deployment, explaining how absolute overconfidence always causes a predator to ignore minor variables. He assured her that the hidden watermark safeguards were perfectly calibrated, meaning Richard's next unauthorized extraction would be his last. Victoria looked up into his deep, resolute brown eyes, a profound sense of mutual trust cementing their alliance across their completely divided worlds. The storm outside the facility began to clear, leaving a quiet, humid midnight air over the shipping containers. Inside, the 3 conspirators clustered around the portable workstation, finalizing the operational timeline for the upcoming corporate security audit. Sarah Vance highlighted the exact network gateway Richard would use to initiate the unauthorized data transfer from the primary servers. To monitor the physical server arrays during the breach, Arthur needed unhindered entry to the core infrastructure room on the 40th floor. Victoria reached into her dark trench coat, extracting a sleek, silver electronic access key designed for high-level administration. The keycard was meticulously modified, its exterior disguised as a standard night shift maintenance employee identification badge. This specialized device allowed Arthur to bypass the internal tracking arrays that Richard had secretly installed to monitor company personnel. Victoria handed the badge to Arthur, her slender fingers brushing his calloused hand, sending a silent wave of shared purpose between them. She instructed him to maintain his normal maintenance cleaning routine, acting as a phantom within the corporate corridors until the trap snapped shut. Arthur pocketed the modified badge, his resolute expression confirming his readiness to breach the perimeter defenses of his corrupt superiors. Arthur clocked in at exactly 11:45 p.m. at the ground floor security entrance of the Sterling Tower, his demeanor perfectly routine. He pushed his industrial cleaning cart loaded with cleaning supplies, maintaining his familiar, invisible presence within the lobby. He navigated the quiet marble corridors, approaching the restricted elevator bank reserved exclusively for senior corporate leadership. Arthur tapped the disguised maintenance badge against the advanced, encrypted electronic proximity scanner on the wall. The proximity scanner flashed a faint blue confirmation light instead of triggering the standard security tracking array. The heavy brushed steel doors slid open seamlessly, welcoming the phantom operative into the private lift compartment. The elevator ascended swiftly toward the 40th floor, the digital interface indicator ticking upward through the quiet gloom. The lift stopped with a soft electronic tone, opening directly into the sterile, modern architecture of the core server wing. Arthur stepped out onto the polished granite floor, his long shadow stretching ahead into the high-contrast corporate interior. Arthur slowly pushed his industrial cart down the narrow server corridor. The glass walls on either side exposed rows of massive computer racks pulsing with neon blue indicators. He positioned the cleaning equipment methodically near the heavy entrance of the core server vault, maintaining his routine appearance without a single wasted movement. He subtly checked a micro-receiver embedded inside his dark glove, ensuring the internal network synchronization with the remote operations center was fully stable. Miles away in the secure study, Victoria watched a small diagnostic node on her terminal screen shift to a solid, reassuring emerald color. Beside her, Sarah Vance finalized the legal tracking triggers, ensuring the compliance system would permanently archive every byte of the incoming data breach. Back in the sterile hallway, Arthur caught his reflection in a dark glass security panel, his rugged features showing absolute discipline and military readiness. The digital wall clock displayed 4:48 a.m. The cold, geometric highlights of the corridor emphasized the silent countdown toward the scheduled network infiltration. A low-angle shot captured the massive reinforced titanium doors of the server vault, their biometric scanners glowing a cold white light in the empty space. Arthur methodically extended his mopping pattern across the slate floor, keeping his perimeter monitoring arrays fully alert for any physical approach. Suddenly, the faint electronic chime of the executive elevator echoed down the silent corridor. Arthur froze momentarily, his jaw tightening as the shadow of the conspiracy arrived. The elevator doors parted, revealing Richard Sterling and his younger technical associate. Their sharp footsteps echoed sharply against the cold granite, breaking the absolute silence of the core wing. They strode confidently toward the vault. Richard glanced briefly at the maintenance worker mopping the floor, immediately dismissing him as an insignificant piece of the corporate background. Arthur lowered his head, maintaining the rhythmic motion of his mop. He utilized the polished glass walls to covertly monitor their exact tactical movements without breaking his cover. Reaching the massive titanium doors, Richard placed his hand on the biometric scanner. The system verified his executive clearance, glowing green to authorize the unscheduled entry. The heavy locking mechanisms disengaged with a deep mechanical clunk. The vault doors swung outward, exposing the humming, neon-lit labyrinth of the corporation's primary data center. Once inside the chilled server room, the associate immediately opened a sleek metallic briefcase, extracting a high-capacity, military-grade encrypted storage drive to extract the targeted files. Outside, Arthur subtly adjusted the position of his cleaning cart. He aligned his posture to ensure a clear, unobstructed line of sight directly into the illuminated server vault. The younger associate connected the drive to the central mainframe terminal. His fingers moved rapidly across the keyboard, initiating the unauthorized extraction protocol that Richard had ordered. Miles away in the dark study, Victoria and Sarah watched intensely as a red intrusion alert materialized on their remote monitors, confirming the infiltration was actively underway. Back in the vault, a digital progress bar appeared on the server terminal, beginning the massive data transfer. The trap was perfectly set, awaiting the inevitable digital collision. Inside the chilled vault, the digital progress bar steadily approached 75%. The high-capacity drive consumed the fabricated files with ruthless efficiency. Suddenly, the associate's fingers hesitated over the keyboard. A subtle discrepancy in the data checksums caught his highly trained technical eye. He expanded a diagnostic window. The screen flooded with complex cryptographic watermarks, exposing the hidden tracking signatures embedded deeply within the source code. His face drained of color as panic set in. He turned to Richard, his voice trembling as he announced the catastrophic security countermeasure. Richard's arrogant posture shattered instantly. The cold realization that he had walked blindly into an orchestrated corporate trap darkened his sharp features. Reacting with ruthless self-preservation, Richard immediately ordered a total abort. He commanded the associate to wipe the drives and erase all operational footprints. From the corridor, Arthur observed their sudden, chaotic movements through the glass. His muscles tensed, his grip tightening around the long wooden handle. The associate frantically hammered the keyboard to cancel the extraction. Instead of a cancellation, a stark red system lock warning flashed across the terminal. Richard grabbed the younger man's shoulder, his eyes wide with desperate fury, demanding a manual network override before the physical perimeter could close. Outside the vault, Arthur remained perfectly still. He calmly reached toward his hidden communication device, preparing to execute the final containment protocol. Arthur pressed the transmission button on his hidden receiver, sending a silent authorization code directly to the central security mainframe. The massive titanium double doors of the server vault immediately responded, sliding shut with a heavy, final mechanical groan. The biometric scanner outside the vault shifted from green to a solid, impenetrable red, signaling complete physical perimeter containment. Trapped inside, Richard rushed to the heavy doors, slamming his palms against the cold metal, realizing his executive clearance had been permanently revoked. He turned back to the glowing terminal. The associate was frozen in shock, staring at the screen displaying the absolute infrastructure isolation. From her secure study, Victoria watched the live high-definition security feed, witnessing her uncle's arrogant facade completely dissolve into desperation. Her expression remained composed, though a profound sense of closure settled over her as the internal threat was finally neutralized. In the vault, Richard's fury boiled over. Unable to escape, he lashed out, violently sweeping a row of high-end diagnostic monitors off the console. The glass screens shattered against the chilled floor, sparking briefly as the futile destruction echoed within the sealed, neon-lit cage. Outside in the quiet corridor, Arthur calmly picked up his mop, his phantom operative mission accomplished as he blended back into the shadows. Outside the Sterling Tower, the dark midnight rain reflected the flashing red and blue lights of multiple federal law enforcement vehicles. Armed federal agents in dark tactical gear moved swiftly through the glass turnstiles of the grand lobby, establishing an immediate perimeter. The lead investigator, a stern 40-year-old Caucasian male, synchronized his tactical interface with the Central Command Center. Inside the sealed vault, the harsh red emergency strobes continued to pulse rhythmically over the shattered glass and broken monitors. Richard stared blankly at a backup console screen, watching the internal security feed display the rapid tactical ascent of the authorities. His breathing became shallow, his hands trembling as he realized every escape vector within the 40-story tower was completely sealed. Outside the server wing, Arthur waited calmly in a dim utility alcove, his tall frame blending seamlessly into the architectural shadows. He monitored the tactical channels on his micro-device, his military engineering experience allowing him to track the precise containment deployment. Simultaneously, Victoria's private luxury vehicle arrived at the secure underground entrance, escorted by senior legal counsel Sarah Vance. Victoria stepped out into the stark garage lighting, her stunning blonde hair catching the neon gleam as she prepared to face the conspiracy. The private executive elevator doors slid open smoothly on the 40th floor, bathed in the cool ambient light of the secure server lobby. Victoria Sterling stepped forward, her elegant posture radiating unyielding authority, flanked closely by Sarah Vance and the lead federal investigator. Arthur stepped out advice calmly from the dim utility alcove, intercepting the advancing group without breaking his disciplined maintenance worker persona. He discreetly handed an encrypted data tablet to Sarah Vance, providing the final, unassailable chain of custody logs for the recorded evidence. The group advanced down the slate corridor, approaching the massive titanium double doors where the biometric scanner still glowed a solid, restricted red. Inside the glass-walled vault, Richard looked up from the ruined console, his disheveled face locking eyes with Victoria through the transparent partition. Victoria stood motionless, staring at her uncle through the glass panel with an unyielding expression of absolute corporate dominance. The lead investigator, a stern 40-year-old Caucasian male, inserted a master hardware override key into the vault console, initializing the high-level administrative bypass. The heavy titanium doors slowly slid apart with a deep pneumatic hiss, exposing the trapped conspirators to the full weight of the law. Richard backed away against the humming server racks, his hands trembling as federal tactical agents stepped inside the compromised vault perimeter. The lead investigator stepped forward inside the crimson-lit vault, presenting an official federal arrest warrant directly to Richard Sterling. Tactical agents moved in with clinical efficiency, securing Richard's hands behind his back as his remaining resistance evaporated completely. The younger technical associate was also placed into custody at the mainframe desk, his head bowed low in total administrative defeat. Victoria walked slowly into the server vault threshold, the pulsing red emergency strobe lights reflecting off her elegant dark trench coat. She stood a few feet away, her sharp, unblinking blue eyes delivering a silent, crushing judgment that completely stripped away his pride. Victoria spoke in an ice-cold, quiet tone, informing Richard that his systematic betrayal of the family legacy had officially come to an end. Sarah Vance carefully disconnected the military-grade encrypted storage drive from the terminal, ensuring the electronic evidence was legally secured. The federal agents began escorting the handcuffed conspirators out of the core data center, their heavy footsteps echoing down the narrow exit path. Hidden within the dim shadows of the utility alcove, Arthur calmly observed the final processing sequence without a single change in facial expression. He pushed his industrial cleaning cart into a slow, unhurried motion, subtly withdrawing from the active law enforcement perimeter as Chapter 4 closed. The golden rays of a fresh morning sun cut through the breaking clouds, illuminating the glass facade of the Sterling Tower. Across the city, multiple television monitors flashed with breaking news broadcasts detailing the successful neutralization of the internal corporate conspiracy. The financial market monitors displayed a dramatic turnaround, as Sterling Tech stock index surged upward in a sharp, positive green trajectory. Inside the grand press room, Victoria Sterling sat before a gathering of international journalists, her stunning blonde hair catching the flashbulbs. Speaking firmly into the microphones, she publicly commended the unyielding integrity of an invisible engineer who risked everything for asset preservation. In his modest but sunlit living room, Arthur sat quietly on the sofa, watching the live broadcast with a calm, stoic expression. Lily ran into the frame, her blonde curls bouncing as she threw her small arms around his waist, holding a new colorful drawing. Later that afternoon, a corporate courier arrived at Arthur's brick apartment building, delivering an official leather compliance folder. The document inside bore Victoria's executive signature, confirming his immediate promotion to the Director of Corporate Security Integration. Back in her sunlit penthouse office, Victoria adjusted a miniature framed circuit board on her desk, looking out the window with absolute peace. Arthur's new office sat on a middle floor, a modern workspace combining physical security monitors and network infrastructure schematics. On his polished oak desk, high-end engineering tools rested neatly alongside next-generation network encryption hardware. The office was strategically positioned as a physical bridge between the night maintenance department and the core IT sector. Lily walked into the office, her eyes wide with excitement as she carried a small, neatly framed drawing in her hands. She carefully hung the artwork on the brick wall, displaying a colorful drawing of Arthur wearing his janitor uniform like a knight's armor. Arthur looked at the drawing, a profound wave of pride and warmth softening his rugged features as he embraced his daughter. Victoria Sterling appeared in the open doorway, her commanding presence replaced by a genuine, relaxed warmth as she smiled at the family. She stepped inside, her analytical gaze softening completely as she admired Lily's creative depiction of the building's true protector. Victoria extended a gold-embossed invitation card, officially inviting Arthur and Lily to the corporation's upcoming Family Day celebration. Lily beamed with absolute joy as Victoria promised she could wear her favorite princess dress to the grand public recognition ceremony. The massive outdoor parking lot was completely transformed into a vibrant carnival ground under a crisp, clear autumn sky. Arthur arrived at the festival gates, looking remarkably distinguished and sharp in a perfectly tailored dark corporate suit. Beside him walked Lily, beaming with pure childhood ecstasy as she wore her favorite purple princess dress made of layered tulle.
It's inspiring to see so many faces here tonight. Together, we are redefining what's possible for our community and beyond.
Dozens of employees and their families stepped forward to shake Arthur's hand, offering deep gratitude for the preservation of their livelihoods. Victoria Sterling ascended the steps of the main outdoor stage, commanding the immediate attention of the thousands of gathered attendees. She spoke passionately into the microphone, stating that true character and integrity far outweigh corporate credentials or financial status. She publicly recognized Arthur Pendelton as the true guardian of the corporation, inviting him to join her on the main stage. The entire crowd instantly erupted into a massive standing ovation, cheering and applauding with overwhelming warmth and gratitude. Arthur stood at the center of the stage holding Lily's small hand, looking out at the sea of smiling families with quiet, profound emotion. As the sun set over the carnival, the three of them sat quietly on a hay bale, sharing hot cocoa away from the bustling crowd. Lily looked between the two adults with a wise, calculating expression, quietly understanding a bond that transcended corporate structures. Months later, in his new office, Arthur sat with Lily, patiently teaching her how to solder a delicate electronic circuit board. The silver solder melted perfectly under the heat, flowing into place to create a strong, unbroken connection. Victoria appeared in the open doorway, no longer an isolated executive, but an accessible leader carrying fresh coffee. She pulled up a chair and donned a pair of safety goggles, eager to learn from the man who had rebuilt her foundation. Arthur's steady hands gently guided Lily's small fingers, demonstrating that every component possessed inherent value. Lily observed that the entire corporation functioned like a massive circuit board, relying on every single connection to operate correctly.